Hello, my name is Crystal Hoban, aka Crystal Clear Mystic, and I want to talk today about empaths and kind of like the struggles that we have as an empath. I'm also an empath, which also makes me really in tune with like my psychic abilities and things like that. This was something that was brought to my attention to talk about from a viewer, which thank you so much for kind of sharing that with me. That's something that you would be interested in hearing about. But also, thank you so much for supporting me. I do respond to comments, and I will kind of like do videos that people ask me for. I love to provide what people need, so let me know what that is, and I gotcha. Um, but I want to talk a little bit about like empaths and some of the difficulties that many of us have. So when when you're an empath, a lot of the time we have grown up in certain situations where when you're more able to tap into this part of yourself or you close yourself off to this part of yourself. And that's really dependent on really a lot of different things, but what's around you, the messaging that you're receiving, all of those different pieces. Okay. And so as an empath, who is in tune and tapped in and who is healing, okay? Because that's when this will start to actually heighten these empathic abilities. They will start to increase and heighten as you choose to heal and as you choose to do the self work to take care of yourself and start grounding and regulating your nervous system. It actually increases these abilities. Okay. And that's kind of what happened for me is that when I had my awakening, um, and I had my spiritual awakening and psychic awakening together, which I've talked about this before. It was this idea that all of a sudden I was aware of all these things I wasn't previously, or at least it wasn't within my conscious awareness. I think it was always happening. I just wasn't consciously aware. And a big part of what opened up all these things for me was I had stopped accepting less than what I deserved in relationships. And I started walking away from relationships that were um, not giving back to me what I was putting into them, where I was over giving, where I had to be really small. I would say partially narcissistic kind of dynamics, where it was the narcissist and the empath dynamic that I was in many different situations. And during my awakening, I had realized these things. I had come to a point where I started walking away from those things. As I started to walk away from those relationships and say, no more, I'm done with this, right? I deserve better. My body started to feel calm. I started to be able to be more in my body and more relaxed and more present. And because of that, my empathic connection to myself had increased exponentially. And it had actually gotten to the point where I was struggling to even go out in public. So agoraphobia kind of stuff. Okay. And I had to really learn how to like reground myself and how to like get that under control. And isolation only works for so long and it's not good for many other reasons. So being an empath can be really difficult, especially when you are healing yourself and you're doing the inner work because it's opening up your availability to be more in touch with those things and more aware of those things. Okay. And more tapped into energy on a real note. So, when I first had awakened, one of the things I had realized that was helpful for me personally was that I needed to start wearing and we're actually in the perfect season where I'm at. I'm in New York, a snow hat when I would go out in public because it would cover my crown. And that would help me from taking in all this information that I didn't want to, that was overwhelming for me when I went to the grocery store or when I went out and did the things I had to do. So wearing a snow hat really helped. And what I realized is that a lot of our, like we take in a lot of information through our crown. And so that's kind of another reason why people wear the Habibs, I think is what they're called, or the head coverings, because it actually protects you from taking in the energy all the way around you. Okay. So that was one thing that I personally did. Another thing that really helped over time for me personally was realizing that if I chose to focus on myself and focus on what I was doing and not focus on everything else, I was able to kind of choose what I kind of let in and what I didn't energy wise. So I would walk through the grocery store and I'd be really focused on what I'm doing, what I was touching, what I was moving through, instead of focused on everybody else around me. And that really helped me to be able to separate from that in some ways. Black crystals has really helped me a lot to be able to kind of ground my empathic energy and ground my own energy so that I'm not taking on others and it's not as overwhelming. Um, any kind of black crystal works. I think this is onyx. Labradite was another one that I specifically used to help with that. And when I had met with a psychic when I had first started awakening, they had said putting one on your feet, like on your ankle, like this kind of thing, to help you ground to the ground. So that was another thing that was really helpful. Jasper was another one that I used and I wore it around my neck, and I still do sometimes to help me ground. Um, but one of the things that I realized is that as I became more safe within my body and more safe with myself. So I'm talking about system regulation and being able to stay calm within myself. The more I realized that I was taking in all of this energy and feeling overwhelmed by all of this energy because I was scanning the room and the spaces around me for safety. Okay. And this was something that I had learned to do since I was like a really young kid. I grew up in kind of a chaotic environment. I didn't have the safest people around me. And so I felt like I had to make sure everybody was okay and safe. And it was constantly overwhelming. And I had to know when it was safe enough to be in that space and safe enough to get up and go. So I had become super hyper vigilant and extremely sensitive to energy of other people. And because of that, I was overly focused on everybody else's energy to screen for safety. Okay. So, one of the things that I've realized since I've done a lot of internal healing and come back to myself is that that was part of what was making it really difficult for me to be in public situations and for me to get my empathic abilities like under control. Okay. I consider myself clairsentient, which means that I can feel other people's emotions. And I know what they're feeling usually before they do, which can be uncomfortable for people, but that's kind of just something that I've built and been aware of since I was young. And it was a safety thing, it was a protection thing, it was a survival. It really was survival. So, with that being said, I think a lot of people who describe themselves as empaths have the similar background to what I'm describing to you now. And we had to be this way to keep ourselves safe. Okay. But there comes a point in time where it's not helpful anymore. Really, like at this point in time, you're an adult. You can take care of yourself. You can choose the environments that you go into and the environments that you don't, and the people you surround yourself with and the people that you don't, right? And so this idea that we have to constantly scan is something that is really hard to break, but is something that like served us in childhood that we have to learn how to do differently. And so as you learn how to find safety within your body and safety within yourself, and you learn to trust yourself, and you like learn to focus more on yourself instead of on other people, which comes with healing. To be very honest, there's a lot of healing that has to happen for that to come up. A lot of self-esteem kind of stuff as well, healing, a lot of empowerment and self-trust healing. um, you're not as affected by other people's energy except for by choice. So what I mean by that is that when I'm doing readings or I'm working with somebody, I can choose to be tapped into that, right? But I'm not forced to be tapped into that all the time because I have found safety within my body and within myself. So I can start to choose when I pay attention to those things and when I don't. So if you are struggling with that, that's information that you are in a survival space and you're not completely safe within your body, or your nervous system is not completely regulated. And so, because of that, you are scanning for safety. This is a survival thing. And it's something that takes a lot of practice and time and determination and showing up for yourself on a regular basis to shift and heal and move through. It's a shifting of beliefs, it's a using of relaxation techniques, it's building self trust, it's building safety within your body and within yourself and with yourself. And that then will translate to you being in more control of what you take in, what you pay attention to, and those kinds of things. So, I do help clients do this in my embodied empowerment coaching, which you can find in my bio or on my website, crystalclearmystic.com. I also have an emotional regulation nervous system class, and it's all online. So you can take a look at that if you'd like as well. It's my inner eclipse collective.com. That's my spiritual community. I have a couple different courses on there. Um, but being an empath is not a negative thing. It's learning how to use your skills in a positive way and come into balance with them. Because a lot of the time we're overly focused on other people. And so there's the imbalance, and it's learning how to rebalance those pieces. So I hope that was helpful. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions or anything, and like and follow for more. Love and light.